Welcome everyone to the latest installment in our series of virtual conferences, Everything MDM, brought to you by WindShuttle. Hello, I'm Kerry Young, VP and GM for the EnterWorks product portfolio at WindShuttle. In today's virtual conference, Nandor Forgash from Rich Products and Ramesh Vandasari from IntelliTide will share how Rich Products overcame the challenges of multi-channel syndication using the EnterWorks PIM solution. Nandor has been at Rich Products for 7 years in a variety of roles, from product marketing to now product master data steward. Thank you. He ensures that their United States and Canada portfolio data is in order and that Rich Products builds out the proper syndication channels to reach customers. Ramesh is a senior director at IntelliTide, leading its MDM practice and has successfully led several EnterWorks implementations. Under his guidance, IntelliTide's EnterWorks practice has grown multi-fold over the years and has a dedicated team of certified implementation, support, and managed service experts. So before we get started, for those of you who are unfamiliar with WindShuttle EnterWorks, let me share a little bit about us. WindShuttle is a specialist in data management and process automation. We offer an all-in-one platform for multi-domain MDM, PIM, and DAM, meaning that you can implement multiple domains of data on a single instance of our solution without installing any additional software. Our solution is highly configurable, meaning it can be implemented with little to no programming, and because of that, typically offers a very low total cost of ownership compared to other MDM solutions. Our solution can be deployed as a fully managed solution in the cloud, in your own private cloud or data center, and is rated highly by all of the industry analysts, including Forrester, who rated EnterWorks a leader in both PIM and MDM, the only PIM or MDM solution provider who is rated as a leader in both reports. Next slide, please. WindShuttle has over 2,500 customers across the globe, and we work with leading manufacturers, distributors, and retailers in most industry verticals, including food, CPG, apparel, and home furnishings. Okay, it's my honor now to turn it over to Nandor and Ramesh. Guys, please take it away.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kerry, for the introduction. I'm Ramesh Vandasari, and I also go by RV for those who knows me. My name has been the victim of a data dupe merge because one of my boss name also starts with Ramesh, so I'm a victim. My name is a victim of that. So why are we talking about data syndication? Why today? I mean, this data syndication has been ongoing for almost a decade. So why are we stressing on data syndication? To understand that, I have to talk about the MDM evolution. So we have then and now and future, but before then, we also had a pre-then. So what was in pre-then state is that's when I got into the market. We probably at that time, we just had one application, one legacy, or we had a one ERP, which was trying to solve all the problem, the world problem, all the process problem. But it was during that time, we realized we can't have one product solving all the process. So what we did, we ended up having best of breed. When that happened, best of breed, then we had multiple system of record. We had from SAP, Dynamics, PeopleSoft, Oracle, Salesforce to solve the problem. So in doing so, we were able to solve a lot of our transaction problems. But that gave us a new breed of problem, which is data inconsistency, because now the data is being shared across different applications. There were duplication of data. So who is going to be the owner of all this issue? So what we got in, so MDM stepped up and said, okay, we will help you with all the data dupes, cleaning up the data, did the data governance, and we helped with the speed to the market. Also, they also MDM added a new layer for the syndication. So the data from MDM is being sent out to the print, retail management system, and also your e-com portal. Back then, the e-com portal was probably your local, your personal, your company website, or maybe your data pool, or could also be in one of the business partner. But over last 3 to 4 years, we have been hearing a lot about digitalization. So what that did is we are seeing a bigger growth in the consumer portal. So now we started seeing it's not just your B2B. We also started to see we have started selling directly to the customers. So what that did, so regardless where our data is being authored, it could be your MDM or it could be your ERP systems. But the driving factor was still your syndication channel. So what I mean by that is, back when we were doing the initial requirement gathering a few years back, we were so focused on saying, what are the attributes, what are the information that we needed to capture for the MDM implementation? And probably there was last few questions saying, okay, who all we want to syndicate. But now when we get into the requirement gathering, there's a lot more emphasis on your syndication channels. So now we're talking about, we start getting more into details. Are there any transformation for your syndication? What are your business rules? What are your hierarchies? Does your taxonomy support your syndication? So now there's a lot more weightage on where your final destination, where you're syndicating out is. So in this diagram, you also see there's an API gateway. So it's basically a decoupling of your MDM with your online syndication channels. What it does, it basically takes your product, routes it to the right channels, and you also have the option to do the mapping in the API gateway, or you could also do it on the MDM. Lately, IntelliTide has been working with EnterWorks last couple of quarters to do a lot more working on a portal for this. We probably, hopefully, will have some more presentation on this, but if you're interested to know more about it, please reach out to Kerry or Ramesh Prabhala from IntelliTide. The next thing, but still the biggest heavy lifting, which is all your validation, your hierarchy orchestration, that is still happening in the MDM. And that's where we're going to focus on. So like I mentioned, there was last 3 or 4 years, we have been seeing a lot more growth on the B2C. And if you see in 2010, the sales percentage, the online sales percentage to the retail spend was 6.4, and it almost jumped threefold in the last 2019. But with the COVID that's going on, and you're already seeing this the current crisis actually it's increasing the acceleration for our B2C online sales. I'm sure next year or two we will see this to be doubling up. So that's why I think the syndication is going to play a more pivotal role in MDM's future market. So that's why we picked this topic for our seminar today. And Nandor from Richwood is going to share his story, how we evolved from our implementation and how the complexity and how we solve the syndication. Nandor, it's all yours.
Thank you all for joining Ramesh and I today. As Ramesh had said, my name is Nandor Forgach. I work for Rich Products. And go to the next slide. Just quickly, who is Rich's Products? Not many of you, unless you're in the food service industry, have probably heard of us. We are a food manufacturing customer, mostly B2B. There is some B2C business there, but we are global. We're in multiple different continents: Asia, Europe, Africa, Latin America, South America. And we do about $4 billion in annual sales with 11,000 associates and 4,000 plus product codes. You can see the list of products. We have everything ranging from toppings, creams, and culinary solutions to frozen beverages and even barbecue. You can imagine that keeping track of 4,000 plus product codes is pretty tough, and that's sort of one of the reasons, one of the many reasons, but one of the main reasons we started down this MDM journey. So we can go to the next slide. So this is just a quick slide here. What we had before. So we all have our ERP systems, and we used PLM and SAP as our ERP systems, and Cumulus was our DAM for all of our digital assets. And then in some way, shape, or form, these ERP systems fed into our public-facing websites, our internal websites, and then we sent out that data in some fashion to our external customers as well, mostly manual process. Those of you that are in the food industry, up until 2017 when Amazon purchased Walmart, I feel like we were still faxing or sending Excel files. And then as soon as Amazon stepped into the business, it was like light speed to digitalization and getting to how do we syndicate the data immediately to our customers. So one of the issues that we were running into before we implemented an MDM tool was how are we, A, keeping track of what data is going out to our customers, ensuring that it's the right data, and then, you know, how are we auditing to make sure that the data that we have in our ERP systems is actually complete and there are business rules against it, so that we're not just sending out anything, we're actually sending out good and and complete data to our customers. And so a lot of the goals that we were looking to achieve was, one, cleaning up our master data. Two was giving our associates more time back in their lives so that they weren't running around trying to find the right data to send to customers. And three, ensuring that with these time savings, we could focus on anything else. Those of you that have attended any sort of conference, really we were looking to cut out the mundane work by improving our master data quality so that we could allow our associates to focus on creative work and really growing the business continually in the future. So we can go to the next slide. So what we looked to do by implementing EnterWorks was really tie everything together into one centralized place. So we, as Ramesh had mentioned, through the use of APIs, we actually tied our ERP systems, PLM, SAP, and our DAM Cumulus into EnterWorks. We used EnterWorks as the central repository for all of our data from these systems. So they collected into one place, we were able to audit it, and then based on who we wanted to send it to, where we needed to go, we could syndicate it out, promote these codes out in real time quickly, unlike what we were doing before. And this also offered our associates a one-stop shop to see what product data is available for each product code, what they might be missing, or just even if they need to look up data because they need it for their own personal purposes, rather than going to PLM and SAP, having to search through everything, they could come into EnterWorks and look up that data very quickly. So one of the things we actually did was we did a time study of how long it would take to look up data in EnterWorks and look up that same data in PLM. And we actually saw each query for that data was gave us about 1 minute and 30 seconds worth of time savings versus what we had been doing previously. So if you add that up over time, that's a lot of time you're giving back to your associates. So we wanted to create a time savings portal, but we also wanted to improve the quality of data that we were sending out, as well as the speed that we were sending out that data in. So now we're getting real-time data coming over from our ERP systems in EnterWorks, making sure that it's getting cleaned up. And now we can set it so that it just goes over automatically. So there is some manual process in having to set the flags for where we want the data to go. But then every time there's an update to that data, it automatically gets updated through the syndication process that we set up through EnterWorks. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ramesh, and he can talk a little bit more about the syndication process that we set up.
Okay, thank you, Nando. So the key was we wanted less touch points. We didn't want to manual the syndication. We want to automate this process. So during the initial requirement phase of, I think Rich Food went live early last year. And during our requirement gathering, we were actually very focused on 2 channels at that time. We wanted to syndicate. That was for the GDS in US and Canada. So we had all our business rules configured to that point. And we were syndicating it out once a week or bi-weekly, and the change in products were not that frequent. So at that time, we kind of said, oh, well, it's probably easily manageable doing it manually. And guess what? Within a month of going live, we realized we need to add 7 more channels. And the frequency of those channels was more frequent. So now, obviously, the manual process which we were implemented was not a viable solution. So what we thought, okay, why not use the validation levels as for the syndication to automate that process? The problem with the validation level, as you all know, there is actually out of the box, we only have 5 levels, which is actually out of the box. It's called from A to level E, E being the core syndication level. Generally, most of us, our level E is reserved for the core validation rules, so that if it meets, it gets promoted to production. So that left us with 4 levels for syndication. So what the problem with that is now we are trying to cram in all the 7 validation rules into this validation level rules. Another problem with that is it's actually, as you all know, it is a very sequential. When I say sequential, what it means is, so you have to meet the level E. If it meets the level E, that's when it goes to level D and level C in that order. So now imagine the complexity. It's not just the creation of the rules. It's now which level do we set it out, the creation of level the rules need to be assigned to. There could be some scenarios where there could be a channel which really doesn't have any common with any other business rules. It has a unique set of rules. So where do I place it? I mean, it could be as simple as all I need is this attribute to be populated. So do I put it in level D? But now doing so, we are actually moving everything around. So that's where the complexity and during the design phase, we also realized that now we were actually added 6 more channels. So that lead to 13 channels. So now imagine the complexity of adding the 13 channels, cramming into the 4 business rules. So what we, and also we said, well, this is now 13, what in future, is this a scalable process? So we kind of decided that it doesn't look at the complexity of the business rules were increasing. We were not sure what the future channels would hold for us. So we said, we develop an alternate solution. The solution we came up with was we would add an attribute for each channel. So let's say if we have 13 channels, we would create, there are multiple ways to do that, but the way we designed this way, it was easier for us to, from a UI point of view, it was very easy. I'm sorry. It would be a Boolean value, which would be yes, no, or not applicable. Then each channel would have its own set of business rules. When I said it's its own set of business rules, what I meant by that is we were not trying to overcomplicate. We just said if a channel has 5 rules, we're going to add those 5 rules to that channel. We're not going to see if there's a commonalities between the different channels. Then we also use the out-of-the-box EnterWorks validation rules, which basically checks if there's any failure on the business rules. If so, it'll set automatically to green. And if it was no, then it would set to yellow or red. At Richfoot, we decided to go with the yellow option, which is the warning. The reason we said is, well, if it is red to us, it meant that it didn't get promoted to production. So yellow meaning is the data is good. It all meant that it was not being promoted or syndicated out to one of any channels. Then we also developed a service which ran just before the promotion. What it did is basically it runs through all the products, check which syndication channel it is being sent to, and it looks if any of the syndication level failed. If it has any syndication failure, it set the flag of the syndication ready to know. And if there was no failure on the syndication, on the business rules, it set the flag to ready for syndication. So the reason why I called it a service, in case of Rich Foods, it is actually a job which ran just before the promotion to do the process. But what you could also use, the same job could be also called as part of your workflow. So during workflow, let's say you're going through the business process and approving it, and just before promotion, you could kick off the service to make sure you update the flag. Or you could also, to make it very real time, what you could do is on save. Let's say you want to update the syndication flag on when somebody updates the value. That could also be done when you develop a custom service, which actually trigger, which would be a customization to call the service. So the way we classified the business rules is we created each channel by its name. So as long as, we had each channel had its own naming convention. So if you look, and this is a snapshot of some of the rules channels. So let's say you have a Canadian public website, you had a one for public website, red website. So if you wanted to add a new rule to the red website in future, all you have to do is you add the business rule, but as long as you stuck to the naming convention, the services would automatically update the flag. And also here, you might have noticed that we all set the severity to the warning instead of the error warning. So error just would have made it red, but this in this case, it's warning. So the good thing about doing this is it makes it more scalable. You are not limited to any levels of validation. All you can do add as many rules as you want, as long as you stuck to the naming convention. So from the UI point of view, how it looks like when this is one of the thing that happened product, which is in the staging. So just before promotion, what the service does is it's going to check if it's the FSD GDS in USA, is it part of the syndication? So syndication channel, it checks in the syndication channel. Well, it is not part of the syndication channel, so it's not applicable. But let's say if it is a GDS in Canada, which is part of, you probably it's cut off here, it is part of syndication. Well, now it goes and checks, did any rule for any of those just GDS in Canada failed? If so, it'll set to no, but in this case, we had all the rules passed and we flipped the flag to yes. And in this case, let's say for public website, it is part of the syndication, but let's say out of the 10 rules, probably because it's a public website, you have more stringent rules. One of the rules had failed, in that case, you would flip the flag to no. And this happens just before the promotion. So all the job is setting the services. And also, we wanted to handle some of the exceptions in rich foods. There could be cases where you have a product where it is still, we don't have the complete details. So we went with the override option. So you could select the option to override, don't look at the GDS and ready, just go and make it ready for syndication. So once that all the calculation is done, it gets promoted to the production. And from production, it is syndicated or either using by your job or using your API, or you could also use your SQL. And I think a couple of our clients use TIPCO, which reads the looking at the channel, if it is ready or not. And based on whether it's yes, it's going to syndicate out to the product. So this was successfully done, and we have been having great success so far. We were able to add recently, again, we are looking at adding a few more syndication channels. And this process has been implemented at multiple clients, like we did it for SCDO. We also had some exercises with Eco Labs. I'm not sure if they have still implemented that. They were looking at doing that too. So that's the syndication, how we configured. So before I go to Q&A, I would like to talk who we are. IntelliTide is a certified partner of EnterWorks. We primarily work on EnterWorks implementation. We have about 50 plus implementation. We have experience in working in multiple verticals, food industry being one of them. Our architect has about 8+ years working in the EnterWorks field and MDM. Something we are really proud about, we have 100% customer satisfaction, and we love to keep that way. And we are a data company. That means we are not just limited to master data management. We would like to analyze your data and try to, once you get to the point where you are happy with what you have in your MDM, we like to come and see what are the hidden values in your data. We also do hosting and managed services. We have strong technical background, so we can always help you with integration with your ERP or external system. And then something we are, like I mentioned before, e-commerce and syndication is something we have been invested heavily last couple of quarters. We have been working with EnterWorks. We have already about 10 to 15 channels already ready to go. We plan to get about 100 to 150 channels in next 2 months. We already have a couple of clients lined up doing our e-com syndication. So it's basically, if you want to get more information, I'm sure you can reach out to Ramesh Prabhala or Kerry, and hopefully we'll have a seminar soon about that. Let's go to Q&A. So if I'll try to answer any easy questions, and if it's any hard question, I'll smartly defer it to Nandor.
Hey, thanks, guys. Very interesting presentation and great timing because I know syndication is top of mind for many companies right now. So appreciate it. The first question I have is for Nandor. So, sorry, Ramesh, I'm starting with the with your smarter colleague, as you said. Just kidding. You mentioned sort of your previous state before MDM, and now you're syndicating through MDM. Beyond the sort of efficiency gains that it looks like you've gotten, and hopefully some data quality gains, have you started noticing any uplift in sales in these channels? Feedback from your direct customers or your end customers in terms of the quality of data? What have you noticed just from like a customer experience perspective, sales uplift experience?
Sure. We definitely, so to your point, I know outside of data quality and associate time savings, we definitely seen per Ramesh's point, we are trying to scale up our e-commerce environment, whether that's through an Amazon channel or any of our customer.com sites. And so we're starting to see a lot of movement there. And we are definitely getting a lot of good feedback regarding the data quality and the data that we're sending to our customers today. And even our internal associates are actually really grateful for the speed at which we're getting the data to them to pass along to customers as well, for any needs that they might have.
Mm-hmm.
Because we did go live last year in June, but we didn't necessarily really start to begin to track a lot of the work that we were doing until January this year, and that was a little bit sidetracked because of the COVID-19 pandemic that hit us. So, but if you get back to us maybe at the end of this year, we'll have more solid numbers that we can talk about.
No, that'd be interesting to hear. So thank you. And I noticed that you're syndicating to Kroger, who I'm guessing is a very important channel for you. Is that a B2C channel? Do you have other B2C channels planned in the future? What's your strategy around that?
Yeah. And so Kroger is just one example of many customers that we syndicate to, and that was more just to show that a lot of our customers are asking for data so that they can publish it to their .com sites, especially since they're really like a Kroger or Walmart is really trying to build up the online shopping experience, Instacart style shopping. And so we're working to feed our data into their system so that they can publish it onto theirs and have the right kind of product data available on their sites to portray the right information to it. And so we're really focusing on that to ensure that we do have not just complete data, but also quality. So, one of the analogies I was using, and it's even truer now that we're all sort of in this secluded style of living where we're even more so relying on the internet to do our shopping, is, before Amazon broke into the food service industry, a lot of our first impressions came from our sales guys going in and talking to customers about what Riches has to offer, what our product selections are, and everything like that. So that was your first impression. Now, as the food service industry has started to modernize and buyers are becoming more tech savvy and things like that, your first impression is no longer the sales guy walking through the door. It's your own website and whatever a customer finds online. So you have to make sure that your house from a data perspective is in order and that you're putting out the best quality information that you can to really entice that buyer to be like, wow, this company does have their stuff together and they know what they're talking about from a food perspective, and it's really interesting. I mean, how many of you are out there shopping on Amazon or any sort of .com site? You're going to take a look at the reviews. You're going to look at what the customer is putting out there before you even think about buying it. And if it's just sort of like well, here's a TV, like, you're not going to take them seriously. You're definitely looking for more information. So as we continue down this journey, we were traditionally a B2B, but now we're realizing that we also have to be more of a B2C as well, and start expanding our information from that perspective.
And I'm sure it's, at least I'm guessing that it's the amount of data that you have to share is going way up. You know, things with smart label and nutritional information, everything that customers, your consumers are demanding today is probably putting, you know, a lot of pressure on, I would guess, on Rich Products to provide more and more information so that consumers can make a good choice.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it's you know, I think the demand, it almost feels like it's a daily change to the information that's being asked for. We're continually getting requests, and our customers and the end customers want more and more information about the products that they're buying. The nice thing about the EnterWorks application is we can actually scale this up. So in a lot of ways, if we have one customer coming to ask us for certain information, we can create attributes in EnterWorks to cover us and do it in a manual process, which is a little bit time consuming, but then it sort of offers us a quick win in the short term before we start implementing it into our ERP systems for the long run. So it's sort of like a nice scalable option to really cover all these new requests that are coming in from our end customers.
Great, thank you. I guess we'll let Ramesh V back into the conversation here. So,
he's the brains behind the operation.
So RV, for PIM customers who aren't already syndicating, or who are syndicating to multiple channels, but not using this particular strategy that you just covered for syndication, do you recommend adopting a strategy like this? Is it a big endeavor? What do you have to think about to do something like this?
That's a good question. So yeah, I mean, so what happened is what you have is currently totally fine. So if we are adding few more channels to that, what we could do is you could take a hybrid approach. Is you still leave the channels the way it's configured now, but the new channels you could add, you could adopt the new methodology. Or you can actually totally revamp. When I say revamp, you don't have to do everything rework. All you're doing is you keep your business rules intact, but you just have to stick to a naming convention. So that should not be much of a hard effort. And you probably need to develop a service, which, like I mentioned, that should be out there. So anything that you did, probably you get to keep all your work. Nothing has to be redone. It's just a few more additional bolt-ons that you have to build around that.
Okay. And there's a question from the audience, and maybe this is for both of you. You know, I know the EnterWorks solution is highly configurable, but the question is, does it require an implementation firm to implement it, and is it required for EnterWorks adoption? And then there's a follow-on question: how about other PIMs and CMSs? Is an implementation firm required?
So I think when this is actually the way we configured the system, it is totally out of the box. We didn't have to write any Java code. So all we did is use the validation business rules and the services. The way we work the services is still, you may have to write a few SQL. It's part of the job, but other than that, it's still, as long as you have a decent enough SQL background, we should be able to adopt this functionality.
Yeah, and I think it just in general, what we've seen is that typically for your initial implementation of a PIM, whether it's the EnterWorks PIM or another PIM, you are going to want to get some help implementing the solution, just so that you're not you're able to take advantage of best practices. You know, best practices not just in terms of data quality, but data modeling and workflow, and in general, it just helps make the implementation go much smoother as well.
Yeah, I would second that, Kerry. We definitely gained a lot through having the EnterWorks team and IntelliTide as our implementation partners, because there's just a lot. We're new to this master data world and this MDM and PIM tool world. So really being able to fully utilize what EnterWorks has to offer only came with that support from an implementation partner, because they sort of, we tell them like, hey, here's what our end goal is. This is what we look like we want to do. And they would come in and say, like, here's all the tools that you can use to create. And then once we learned how to do it, our team was able to take it over, and to Ramesh's point, create rules and update the rules. To the point, even someone like me who has zero IT background can actually create some rules. So getting a little dangerous.
And Nandor, I think if I remember right, your focus is mostly on North America, but I know Rich sells all over the world, as you mentioned earlier. Is the syndication strategy being used globally? Are there plans for expanding it globally? I guess, and what are you all thinking about that from a strategy perspective, if you're able to share it?
Yeah, I mean, we are using it globally. We are using the MDM tool globally. We're not using it to the extent of how we're doing it with the USC. So really our United States Canada business is really using EnterWorks from a syndication perspective and a master data management tool perspective to its fullest use. Our global suits, we're not there yet. We are syndicating to our public facing websites using this. However, there is some work to be done to start building out that ability to do that long term within our global markets.
Great, thank you. Well, any last words of wisdom from either of you? I don't see any more questions from our audience. In terms of syndication, PIM, any last words you'd like to leave with our audience today? I guess that's a no.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, to be honest, if you haven't considered implementing a master data tool, really consider it. It pulls everything together. It's a great way to bring your information into a way that you can create a best-in-class environment for your data, and it's amazing what a world of difference it brings to your company from that perspective.
Great. Well, Nandor, Ramesh, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to everybody who joined us on this conference, and look forward to seeing you on Thursday, where we have the Fender team joining us as well. So thanks. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.